I ghosted my therapist, and let me tell you why. For context, my mum passed away last year, and after I had buried her, specifically 2 weeks after, my friends basically held an intervention to kind of like go through all the things they didn't really like about me. And as fair as that was, I was obviously going through a lot at the time. But in a fast and desperate attempt to fix these things, I decided to go to therapy. I wanted to be a better friend, but my therapist would just validate me and tell me, no, you're not these things that your friends are telling you that you are, which was really hard for me to believe. I couldn't believe that. Plus the fact that I felt like I was talking to a friend in.
Okay, so what would my thoughts be on this? I feel like it's very hard to judge until you hear both sides, because it is easy to listen to this and react because of how you would feel if maybe a loved one, passed, particularly your mum, and if you've got a really good relationship with your mother or parent or whoever, you kind of put yourself in the shoes, thinking it's just atrocious. It's absolutely unthinkable that friends will speak to you 2 weeks after the death of your mother and you're grieving. But it's hard to know the context because there was a 650, less than 1 minute video. What did she present? How can I put this? When people pass, everybody goes into grieving, but everybody presents it very differently. There are people that we see who the person passes on a Monday, they're back at work on a Tuesday, they're acting like normal. Now, and I say normal, I'm not talking about like, yeah, they're acting like nothing happened. And even though you got to recognize that your friends are not therapists, so we might know now about the 5, 6 stages of grief. But just because we know these things, it doesn't mean that when in reality people do the opposite of what we think. Somebody dies, there should be crying, there should be tears, there should be a period of time where it's like, okay, it's clear that you're grieving. But everybody's grief is different. So if your grief is different, if your grief is, going to the club the next week, which you see people do that. Same way that people get divorced and then they go mad, or they break up and they go in a mad kind of mad swing because they haven't, they've been locked in a relationship. And then some people don't. Some people want to go right back into a just one relationship, right? Everybody responds to things differently. So maybe she was normal, whatever that looks like. She did not seem like she was sad and upset. So they didn't see it as a, oh my God, your mother just died. They saw it as, okay, well, she's seeming to be okay. If she was Muslim, Muslims bury very quickly. So the mother could have been buried already. And to be very honest with you, I'll say this: when is the right time? We might obviously say 6 months. Some people might say 6 months is too soon. Some people, because I'm telling you, she said 6 months after mother's died. Some people will still say that's too soon. People are grieving. It can take years to. People will grieve all their life. So this is the point that I'm making, right? How long is the mourning period and how long is the grieving period? Like, what is it? When is it okay to do this? Is it insensitive by just what she said? Yes, but we need to head the other side. Now, on one hand as well, she said friends, not friends, to tell her, she said it in her own words, what they don't like about her. It may not have been that, it may have been things that we're just not happy with, and we want our relationship to be better, right? Because again, the perception that she can give is everything is wrong with me. A couple of videos ago, I talked about the Tyler family from Love and Marriage DC, and there was a family intervention. And if you watch that without a trained eye, you'd be looking at the child, Tyler, little Tyler, 26 years old, think, why is my guy crying and throwing a tantrum when his family have done an intervention and they're telling him in his face that they love him and they want him to be better and that we should go therapy? And he's taking this to be, I'm bad, I'm bad, I'm bad. All right. And I gave my therapist breakdown. You can see that. I gave my reason for why I think that is the case. So if there was no videos and he was to describe the intervention, he could say, "Oh, my family was against me, they ganged up on me." But when you watch it, you wouldn't see that. So it's really important that this may have been a conversation that they had, maybe during the funeral after her mother's death. She was still being not nice, in the words of what her friends may have said, and they couldn't take it, and they've done the funeral, they're about to do the funeral, and they want to support their friend, but they can't support their friend in the way she's acting. They need to tell her that, like, we know you've gone through something, but please fix up, because we're really finding it hard to support you. Right? Some people might say, no, it's still wrong. That's fine. For you, it's still wrong. I can't make a judgment of that until I hear this side of the story. Yes, do I think 2 weeks after somebody's mother has passed, forget that, because somebody's brother, somebody's friend, we're assuming, most people are reacting because it's the mother, and we naturally assume that, as she's a woman, she probably is close to her mother. Many people are not. But still, just because they're not close doesn't mean that they wouldn't be upset or sad. Grief is very tricky, and that's why it's about just trying your best and saying, look, let me know at any point in time that I am, not doing what you need. I'm not giving you what you need. Sometimes people don't even know what they need. Yeah, to tell the truth, people don't even know what they need. So the reason why I say this is because I think we have to be careful to cast judgment on that and just say, okay, that's very interesting. I wouldn't do it like that. Then say, oh my God, those friends are dead wrong. You should have dropped them. No. She just said that she even agreed that maybe she's not a good friend. This girl could be a terrible friend. Bad things happen to terrible people. Murderers lose loved ones as well. And you might see somebody who has murdered somebody. I don't know if you can say that on YouTube. He has done, has harmed somebody, and they lose a loved one. And let's say you don't know that they have, you feel sorry for them. But the moment somebody tells you, you know what the person did? Their person, you might be like, I don't feel sorry for them anymore. Ain't that human, right? Naturally human. You will see somebody crying and be upset. Then when you find out the character of that person, the way you feel less sorry for that person. So I'm not saying that you should feel less sorry for her because she supposedly is a horrible person to her friends, supposedly. It's more that there's a context that she has herself somewhat admitted that, well, I don't know if she agreed that she was a terrible friend or she wanted to rectify the relationship and salvage it. So said, okay, therapy will help me identify, am I a terrible friend? Oh, let me say this point. With therapists naturally so I was just trying to check if it's still going. Therapists naturally like to counteract negativity. What do I mean? If you say, oh, I'm so horrible, I'm a nasty person, a therapist will, might say like, oh no, you shouldn't say that about yourself, because we are trying to challenge the critical parent, the critical voice in your head, right? Now, again, an experienced therapist, especially in the first few sessions, I won't counteract a lot of negative things you're saying, because I need to know where it's coming from. I need to understand, the context of that, because I'm aware that I could be speaking to somebody who is not nice. And if they're being told that they are horrible, they actually might be horrible. There might be a reason for their horribleness. There's reasons for it, which is why you're in therapy, but the behavior they display is horrible. And there's a way that you can get your client to be accountable that this was not a nice thing. That doesn't mean I'm not a nice person, but this was not a nice thing. If you've got, look, there are people in therapy who are the cheaters. They have cheated on their spouse, on their partner. They're in therapy. So let's just do a typical example. A man is cheating on their wife. They now want to divorce their wife and get with the mistress that they're cheating with, right? And maybe the wife is stopping him from seeing the kids. Or forget that. The wife wants the house, but he wants to keep the house because he wants to bring his mistress in who's pregnant. And while the kids and his wife are older. Now, not because I'm a woman, because if that was a woman or a man, that's outrageous. I'm sitting here. No, there is judgment. To me, yeah, personally, I don't know if I could work with that, because I think my values will show through, because I just can't work with an adulterer who is not remorseful for their adulteration. Like, if you can't see that that's wrong and you've damaged your family and you're starting a new relationship on unhealthy grounds, I don't know if I could work with that, right? There's some therapists that will work with that and will affirm that behavior. That husband may not feel they did anything wrong, because there are cheating husbands, there are cheating wives, there are people there are racists that go to therapy that are affirmed. There could be a racist that will be in therapy right now who doesn't make it obvious that they're racist. You could And they might just talk about how there's certain people in my workplace that are just so difficult. And maybe the person never asks their color and just assumes that they're white. This could be a white person. It could even be the other way around. It could be a black person and you're talking about a white person and the person does not even know you're talking about the opposite color. They talk because most of the time you're not going to ask, is that person black or white? You're taking the characteristics, not knowing that this person is basically saying that they are racist or they don't like the person because of the color of their skin, but they never mention that. They just talk about how difficult these groups of people are. Obviously, there's a way of making it obvious, but you can say, oh, there's got this one colleague who I just find totally inappropriate and just very aggressive. And because you may not be sitting there thinking they're racist, let me ask you their color and what makes you think they're aggressive and why would you use that word for that person. Da, 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 da. You're taking it as this is a person, an individual that they're having an interpersonal difficulty with. And when they tell you things, you say, oh, that sounds reasonable. Why you'd think that? So maybe they're jealous of you. You hear that? Oh, maybe they're jealous of you. Maybe because you just got a promotion, they applied for the same job and you didn't get it. Not knowing. Oh, what an amazing context. So imagine as a therapist, yeah. This is what happens. A white person comes to you and tells you, "Oh, there's a subordinate in my workplace who, is really making me have a difficult time. I just recently got promoted over them. They also applied, and I think they're a bit jealous of me." But maybe the situation really is that this is a black person and a white person. That black person was more experienced. Everybody thought they're going to get the job. They didn't get the job. You out of nowhere got the job because you were pally with this person. You went to the pub with them. And you're aware of your inadequacy. You're aware that you're not really suited for the job, but you got it, and fair enough. You accepted the job, the position, and you feel threatened by that person. And because everybody else in the workplace also kind of feels like you shouldn't have gotten the job, rather than you seeing that, being truthful and admitting that yeah, maybe I got this job through I got this job through licking the A. They say licking the ears. People can't see that. They can't admit that. They won't admit that. And then they'll go therapist, give a totally different picture or give a picture that they perceive. And the therapist will affirm that person's jealous when actually it's racism. Or maybe not they are being racist. The recruitment practices were racist, or the recruitment practice was unfair. It's not racist, it was unfair because you gave this person based on you being in the pub, chit-chatting and got close, rather than based on the job description, who better fulfilled that. And it was the other person who happened to be black that applied. The reason I'm saying all that just to say that it may not be racism, it could be that. There could be many reasons that occurred, but that manager only gives it one perception to the therapist. So the therapist can only say, oh, from what you're saying, it does sound like maybe that, sounds reasonable to say that she's jealous. So you can see how certain behaviors don't change, don't move on. We've had managers that are terrible, and then we heard that they're in therapy a year later, they're still terrible. You're thinking, bruv, what's therapy doing for you? Because, mate, you're still a terrible manager.